You might need to go to the bathroom. I don't right now, but I'm just saying, that often happens. Just curious. That could happen in the moment.
But in the moment, the spirit only functions in the moment, in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. The mind only functions in the past, which is gone. It's already gone, can't change it. Or the future, which is an illusion. So the only reality is right now, this moment.
Okay.
And everything that the mind has programmed in the past, it's all made up. We made up our scenario. You know that. We have all kinds of beliefs in there, like, oh, somebody doesn't like me because of some, or they do, or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to put this together with your suggestion that we read Nonviolent Communication, which is all about acknowledging what we need.
Devil's advocate right here.
I just want to understand how you're putting it together.
Nonviolent, okay.
Communication.
There are universal needs, and this is part of nonviolent communication. We have a universal need for air.
Okay.
We have a universal need for acceptance, for love. And what nonviolent communication is wanting to teach you is that you don't have any immediate need, like, I need you to do this. That is incorrect. That is not a true need. The only true needs are universal. Air, a loving environment, that's universal. So that's the difference. When you say in nonviolent communication, I need you to do this, that's incorrect. You can say, I have a need to feel accepted by you. That's a universal need. And that's okay. That's universal. And it is also on the law level. Now, remember, the third level teachings, Kalos is really about third level teachings. And in third level teachings, the levels go this way, okay? And how we explain that is that there's lawlessness, okay? There's people that are just totally out of the law. Or like little children, they need to know the law. They need to have the law so that it's easier for them to live. They say, okay, this is you can do and this you can't do. So the law level, and each of the levels of teachings of truth are all valuable. They're all equally valuable. They all serve a wonderful purpose. So here we have the law level is prima. Hi. I didn't see that. Okay. So we have the law level that brings people out of lawlessness. I mean, people that are criminal and really been harsh and anger people and problems and resentments and all that kind of stuff. When we bring them into the law, the law says, thou shalt not kill, you forgive one another, put God first and then your neighbor, and all these laws. Okay, the laws came into being to bring people out of lawlessness, to set order. And it is wonderful if you raise a child without them having rules of what they can do and can't do, they are going to have a difficult time. They need to know. A child needs to know what they can do and not do. Okay, this is a universal need if they are going to grow into a healthy adult. So here we have the law level. Now, you can go through that phase in your life of keeping the law, and I've done that. The law is valuable. The law is our teacher. The law teaches us self-discipline. The law builds self-esteem. The only problem is you'll find that if you don't move on to the next level, if you just stay stuck in the law, you become attached to the law. And then that means everybody that doesn't live the way you do is wrong. And we got that going on in the world. We got to get rid of everybody in the world that doesn't keep our law. That's why people are killing themselves by the thousands, hundreds of thousands. Because they're stuck in the law. Okay? So the law in and of itself is wonderful. It helps us. But if we become attached like that, everybody has to do that, then it's to our demise. But once you realize and you keep the law, this is what I discovered. I discovered when I was in that law phase, I discovered something. That the more I kept the law perfectly, pride began to grow inside of me. Like I was better than someone else. Because I did it. I kept all the law. And so then, knowing that pride was bad, I had to hide my pride. And act humble, even though I was proud. I became proud of my humility. Okay. So the law could only bring me so far because there's a natural thing that human nature does, and that wants to be proud of our accomplishments, of keeping it. And so I went through like a breakdown, and I thought, God, I can't win. I'm trying to do everything perfect, and then the more perfect I try to make myself, the more horrible I become. I become this proud, horrible person that looks down on other people. Oh, great, that's great. That's really spiritual. You know? So then, after praying a while and suffering of my own make, because I didn't understand that I was on the dawn of change, the next level of teaching as you move through the law, which is wonderful when we're young and we need discipline. But then you go to the level of grace. Grace changes it. You start looking at the law differently. You look at the spirit of the law. What is that law there for? It's there to help bring more peace, more harmony, balance. And so you move into this state of understanding what the law meant to be there. And it's the spirit of it. And of course in the New Testament it says that the letter of the law killed, but the spirit of the law brings life. And all of a sudden a certain freedom comes when you realize that it's not that you're going to break the law, at least intentionally, but what you're going to do is live by the spirit of the law. And what is the spirit of the law? Why is that I had a Jewish boy in my seminar once, a 12-year-old, he was getting ready for his bar mitzvah. And he was talking to me, and he says, well, we have to keep the Sabbath holy. Saturday, and he asked me when I went to church. I said, well, I go on Sunday. He says, well, we're supposed to go on Saturday. That's a Sabbath. And I says, well, yes, I know that's your law, but I says, why do you go on Saturday? What is your real purpose behind that law? And he said, to commune with God, to be close to God. And I says, well, that you're absolutely right. That is the spirit of the law. And I says, even people that go to church on a different day, they do it for the same reason. They do it because they want to be close to God. And he looked at me, and I said, he was one of the youngest ones we ever had in a seminar. His mother happened to be my coordinator in Atlanta, Georgia. That's why he was in the seminar. But beautiful guy, just the sweetest guy. Anyway, he got it. He said, oh, okay. So in other words, there's a letter of the law, and then there's the spirit of the law. And in grace is where forgiveness takes place. In grace is where atonement took place. In grace is where you give people favor. Even though maybe their actions don't show it, you be kind to everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they believe, because you're living not by the letter of the law, but you're living by grace. Now, there's a lot of different descriptions of grace, but I kind of like the meaning of grace as unmerited favor. You're loved, you're accepted. Anyway, you don't have to believe a certain way, you don't have to live a certain way, but it's okay. And it opens up to tolerance and understanding and kindness to all people. So you can enter into this grace where you no longer are attached to the law to be right, but you live by the Spirit of the law to be at one with God and to be in inner peace. But still, even at that beautiful level of grace, there is still judgment. There's still judging that goes on. And therefore, the third level teaching simply brings you to another level, from grace to a non-judgmental attitude. So you stop making everybody right or wrong, but it's okay. You're not attached. You could say it's another level of non-attachment to being right. So that you enter a space that we call the third level teachings that is harmlessness. You want to do no harm. You don't want to bring no harm, you want to bring or do no harm to anyone. And you have compassion and forgiveness for those that don't know any better. Okay? Never think that any of these levels of teachings ever tell you what to do in any moment, because you will know what to do in any moment because you'll be living by the Spirit. Now, early missionaries, in the Christian church anyway, they were sent out without a purse, without money, and without a script, without any writings. They just went out and taught. Many of them memorized scriptures from the law of Moses, and they knew scriptures when they could get their hands on it, but it wasn't like we could look it up on the internet or go get a book in a library, you know. Only the scribes had access to a lot of writings. So they had to go without anything and then just go out and teach people their way to come into oneness with God. And so that's what they did. In fact, for many, many, many years, a master teacher never would allow anything written down that he said. And the master teachers in some places in the world right now won't even allow it, because everything had to be experienced. Because, you see, when we write something down, it's more head knowledge. But if we experience it, it gets into our spirit and our soul, and we feel that teaching, and then we can speak from experience instead of speaking what somebody else said in a piece of paper. So each one of us have an opportunity to grow, and I'm just saying these are the 5 areas: perpetual positive attitude, oneness with the Spirit, nutrition, to get the best nutrition we can, and you all know how to do that. To have loving relationships with our family, with our friends, with our organization, to have loving, to create loving family so that you feel the support of other people around you. That was an important part of the Blue Zone book, where people lived to be way over 100, 120, 130 years old. And then the last, of course, exercise. Take care of the physical body, structural body, to be able to stay healthy, because we get out and active, we're doing something, either some sport or dancing, the gym. So I highly recommend. A lot of people ought to use weights and they don't. They're getting weak. And we find that if people will get out and do things, I mean, if you're not going to go out and work in your yard and lift things and pull weeds and do this and that, then you better go to a gym and do it and get some exercise, because you need exercise. Okay? Now, just to back up for a second, the one I already mentioned that being one with the Spirit means taking time. Those times of meditation when you're alone, prayer and meditation, to be in the Spirit. And even if it's only 5 minutes, take that time. And that will help you to come back to that. Do you notice that when you have done that, your whole day is different? When you take that early meditation, you come to peace in the early morning. And if you do it at night, you have such great sleep. It just brings you into a blissful state, and just so much easier to live your life and healthier. Do I have any questions before we start muscle testing?